Hello everyone, my name is Joshua Rudd with Ruddshomefarm. Today we're going to talk about which hydroponic system is best for you. Now we're just going to do a quick overview of a lot of systems. We'll narrow them down and then we'll pick out which are the couple that are really good for beginners and more. If you like my material, check out the description for more information. Let's get into it. Alright, so there are 7 main types of hydroponics as follows. We have DWC or deep water culture. We have Crackkey method. We have NFT or nutrient film technique. We have Ebb and Flow, also known as flood and drain. We have drip, Aeroponics, and Wicking method. We are not also, well, 8 aquaponics, but I'm not going to even deal with aquaponics. That's like mixing animals and plants together, and that's really out of the spectrum of this video. Okay, so we'll start off with the wicking method being eliminated. This wicking method, you have a tray of water at the beneath, and there's usually some sort of cotton wicking method where the soil or neutral grow medium is connected to the tray with usually a cotton piece of material, and as the grow medium dries, the wick through I think it's called capillary action brings the water up from the tray upwards. You know, like let's say if you put a piece of towel in the water and you just dip one piece of towel in there and then you watch the water climb up the towel, that's capillary action. That's how wicking method works. Now, why do I eliminate this one? Number one, most of the time your wicks would not be able to supply the amount of water large plants drink. For example, my tomato plants down there drink upwards of a gallon or so of water a day, and through that capillary action, most plants would not be able to keep up with that, would dry out because the wick isn't supplying enough water. As a side note, many potted plants have the tray underneath them where you use potting soil, and they have that little tray underneath. When you fill it up with water, that little tray of water fills up at the bottom, and then over time that will, as the dirt dries, it will use up the water in the tray. That's the most common usage of wicking method. It's not really for hydroponics. It can be, but I highly recommend not so. Alright, next to be eliminated is the ebb and flow, also known as a flood and drain. This uses a reservoir and a grow medium, and periodically the pump will flood the grow medium with nutrients, and then after a certain time the pump turns off and then all the water drains. So it pumps, fills it up, and then it drains. Fills it up and then drains. The reason why I eliminate this is because it is overly complex and quite necessarily unnecessary if you use other similar types of hydroponics. You'll need timers, pumps, sometimes even valves to start and stop flow, switches, level sensors to make sure that it's not overflowing your system. Each of those points where there's an electronic or electrical piece or a valve or something, that is a point of failure. And what we don't want is our hydroponic system to fail and our plants to die. And ebb and flow uses a lot of failure points. So use other methods than ebb and flow. I would not recommend them. I would not use ebb and flow. All right, aeroponics to be eliminated. I am sad to see this go because I really like aeroponics. I like the idea of just having a reservoir and having these nozzles mist nutrients. It sounds so cool to have misting it. However, I tried it and I hated it because the nozzles always clog. Okay, they always clog. If you can get something that pressurizes and really atomizes the spray instead of this low pressure sort of sprinkler spray where it's kind of like squirting, more like a squirt than a mist, then it always clogs. I mean, every time I tried filters, I tried all sorts of different methods of making sure the water gets clean, but eventually even the nutrients themselves gum up the nozzles, and then you're in there cleaning your nozzles all the time, and then you don't clean them good, and you're throwing them out, replacing them, and then it's just a big hassle. And God forbid that one of the nozzles clogs, and within a couple hours your plant is dead. So if that nozzle fully clogs overnight and it goes 6 hours without any water, your plant is completely dead. Just no covering it, it's dead. Unless, most plants would die. So I like aeroponics. I like the idea of aeroponics, but putting it into practice, I really didn't like it. Plus, let me add, there's such thing as a high pressure, low pressure system. So high pressure system uses what you would have to buy a very expensive pump that could push the amount of pressure necessary in like the hundreds of PSI, and you'd use heavy duty rubber to make sure that there's enough pressure to make an atomized mist of the nutrients, whereas I was using low pressure because it's like I don't have hundreds of dollars to spend just on a pump. So I spent $40 on a pump, and that pump was able to just kind of stream it out there. It was like a little mist, like if you put your thumb on the end of a garden hose, and that's the kind of spray that came out. So it's kind of like it's almost like in a more expensive sort of way to hydroponics. And there's other methods that are more efficient and a better use of time than aeroponics. Okay, so last one I eliminated, and I kind of hinted at, but aquaponics, okay? Keeping both plants and fish alive is an advanced grower issue. I have never done it, but from what I read about it, it's not something I really want to do. It's hard enough to manage a plant, but you also have to manage the fish, and through feeding the fish food and controlling the amount of nitrate in the water with all sorts of, it's super complex. And then the plants will, eat the food and poop out the stuff that the plants eat, and then the plants grow food, and it's just like, honestly, if you just want to grow stuff, if you just want to grow stuff with plants, use the chemical fertilizer. It's way simpler. You don't have to worry about fish dying. You don't have to worry about putting too much food in the plant, too much nitrate. It's a very complex of measuring and keeping two ecosystems stable. You have to keep the ecosystem for the fish stable and the ecosystem for the plants stable as well. Disruption of either of them would cause both to die. Okay, so that is not something I'm willing to tackle yet, and I'm not going, so therefore I eliminate it from the list. That leaves us with 4 more systems that are viable, efficient, and possible for you to use. Those are DWC, Crackkey, NFT, and drip method. We'll go over them one by one. We are going to go from hardest to easiest. So, the first and the most difficult one is an NFT system, which is also called nutrient film technique. NFT works by using a very thin film of nutrients. Just kick the camera. Very thin film of nutrients to make sure most roots are exposed to air and the rest touch the water. This system requires advanced carpentry skills, lots of tools and equipment, and I would recommend you don't buy a kit online. Most of those kits are not US standard PVC pipes. And so when you go to something breaks or something doesn't fit right and you want to add to it, you go to the store and you try to match it up with a US PVC pipe, they don't fit, then you're just like, I got to figure out how to find replacement parts. So don't buy one online when you see it on Amazon. I will never recommend on my website a kit that's already pre-made. So you got to go out there, you got to measure, you got to have the right angles, you got to do your own carpentry skill. But it is, once you get it all set up and it's going, it's a really efficient type of grow. You don't have to have air bubblers because the majority of the roots are exposed to air and the rest of the roots are touching a nutrient film technique, which is nutrient film technique. NFT is kind of like the one you see when you look up pictures of it, like, ooh, look at this cool hydroponics. But honestly, it's one of the most advanced and most difficult to maintain. And if the pump stops working for a couple hours, your plants are all dead. So that kind of like, I'm not really a fan of true NFT. There's a lot of different types of NFTs. I'm using a type of NFT system behind me. We'll get to that. Next up is the drip method. Drip requires you to get an irrigation kit system with pumps and create a flowing system with a reservoir to allow water to constantly drip onto each individual plant. Not very efficient if you have a lot of plants. So each plant, if you grow 20 plants in a row, you'll have to have 20 nozzles. And as you know, the further and longer and more nozzles you have, the lower your pressure will be. And you got to have a high enough pressure to water the plant. I tried using a irrigation kit. You know, I actually have one here. And here you go. I have an irrigation kit. This is on my website, but I'm just not liking using nozzles and drips and stuff, because whenever you use any sort of drip irrigation nozzle, it will clog. That's just how it works. You know, most nutrients are salt-based, so when you put over time, weeks of constant water flowing through them, the salt will build up around in there, and it will just be very difficult to clean. And you pretty much just have to either do some weird chemical stuff and like soak it or something, or you have to throw it away and use another one. So, but it is a viable method. I have used it. I really don't have any problems with it. It's still a great method, so I'd give it a shot if you want to have that one. Next up is DWC. This uses an air bubbler to give the plant's roots oxygen directly through the water. If you understand how plants' roots work, plants' roots need both water and air and nutrients. It needs three things: water, air, and nutrients. If you submerge your plants directly into water and don't add air bubbles to it, then the roots will drown. That's why the number one reason for killing house plants and potted plants is overwatering. Too much water, not enough air, the roots, you know, choke up and the whole plant dies. So roots need air. So how this works is it has a air bubbler, and the plant's roots are in contact with the water the whole time. The contact is usually made by a little floating raft, and for this reason I think it's kind of more complex than it needs to be, because you know that raft could get stuck. You have to find a raft that can float in water. Let's say my tomato plants are huge. They're about almost as tall as me, and they probably weigh, with fruit on them, 10, 12, 15, 20 pounds probably. And so now you need to find a raft that can hold that plant up. And so that just adds more drama to the mix. So, but it's fairly easy with smaller plants. Last but not least, the last method is the Crackkey method, right? So Crackkey, this is my favorite. Crackkey roots can take oxygen directly from the air by having some roots suspended in water and some exposed to air. This is the most simple and can be done in any container. This is the best for beginners. It's foolproof, right? You just make sure the roots have some air. You put some roots in the nutrients. You can use containers of any type, shape, or size, and it's best for beginners. You can grow some really big plants. It's highly scalable, and I love playing around with Crackkey. So if you're looking to get started with Crackkey, follow my other videos, and I go more into depth in Crackkey. I love it, and you should really get into, if you want to have the best user experience. And you know, people think they have to come in with the most complicated method to enjoy hydroponics. Sometimes simplicity is more fun than, you know, actually having food you could put on the table is more fun than having this complicated system that you get frustrated with and walk away because you can't even get the system up and running. Instead of just start off simple and then add to it. And if you want to start off with Crackkey method. Last but not least, make your own hydroponic method. These are all just theories and methods on basically how to do the same sort of thing, right? It's just different ways of giving nutrients through water to the plant's roots. So you need air, you need water, and you need nutrients, and you need to get that to the roots. So you can make your own. I'm about to show you what I got behind me, which is like a combination of both. It's like you can combine systems together. So you could combine an NFT and put an air bubbler in the reservoir and to give more oxygen. You could put an air bubbler in a Crackkey method. You could use DWC but not fill up the reservoir over and over again. And then as it goes down, as the plant grows, the water level goes down, and then now that's DWC with Crackkey method in there. So you could put a drip nozzle on top of a Crackkey method and just have some sort of basic flowing system. You could have NFT where you put drip nozzles do whatever you want, do whatever makes you happy. I can't stand people who want to box people into, well, if you're not doing the DWC method unless you're doing it this way, or you're not doing the Crackkey method if you're doing it this way. These are just guidelines to help you create your own path through hydroponics. So let me show you what I got going on. What I got going on here is it's like an NFT DWC Crackkey method. So how it works is I have a pump underneath here. Excuse my mess. Right, there's a pump in there. This is a filter. It's a pool sock. It's on my website. And here's my air bubbler. I don't have it on because it makes a lot of noise right now. So there's an air bubbler. This is the reservoir. This is the pump. Right? You can see the pump, right? Yep. Then it pumps up through here. And then I'm not currently using this one. So whenever I'm not using it, I cover it up so that I don't have to worry about algae growth. Then I have this one. You can see it comes out here. And then it flows over to this side. And then it comes back down to here. And so it's constantly in motion. Water, to really avoid a lot of water issues with bacterial infections, I like to keep the water moving. Let's see what we got here. We got strawberry right here. We got lettuce, arugula, more lettuce, arugula. Failure with the spinach over there. That's strawberries, lettuce, tomatoes. And then back there are more mature lettuce. This is arugula. That's lettuce. And then even less mature. And so what I like about this system is I can add to the system as much as I want. So whenever I'm not using something, I can keep it covered. And then when I do begin using it, I can uncover it, and I could just use plants. Like these plants will probably take up this whole little tray area. That's why I only have 4. When I first started, I tried to fill up every single hole, and it got a big crowded mess. So sometimes being crowded is a little good and helps it grow upwards, but that's what I got. And I guess the only downside is it makes a slurping noise. It makes like it's just drinking out of a straw. But that's okay. So that's what I got going on. Here's me zooming back up. I plan to add a lot more to it. So what I do is I start my seedlings up here in a regular tray that doesn't move. As soon as they sprout, I only give it like 4 or 5 days, and they sprout and I see the seedling. Then I move it down to here, and then this is where they stay until there's significant root growth. So let me see if I got an example. See, so you see little roots coming out. I usually wait till there's some significant roots coming out. Then I had to. What I like about this is that I could just empty the reservoir down here, and I can actually just clean these in place. So let's say if there's some algae buildup in here, which usually happens, I usually get some algae. I empty the reservoir, I pour water in here, I scrub it, and then I take this tube out and I just empty that directly to drain. And then I could just clean the whole system without any issues. I can extend the life to my nutrients to at least 2 weeks, even though I tend to do it no later than 10 days, just because I just don't want to lose any plants. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.